I saw my sister's message, and my world collapsed. Could she really have done that? I mean, really? What would you do if your own flesh and blood stabbed you in the back like that? Okay, let's rewind. My name is Jessica Lane, and up until 6 months ago, I was riding high. I'd just graduated top of my class from MIT with a degree in computer science. Companies were practically throwing job offers at me. The one I really wanted, the one that made my heart sing code, was from Novatech, a cutting-edge AI firm downtown. They offered me $120,000 a year. $120,000. I could finally pay off my student loans, maybe even get my own place. Picture it. A sleek, modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the neon city lights. But life, as it usually does, had other plans. My sister, Sarah, my only sibling, was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. Suddenly, my dreams of coding brilliance faded into the background. Sarah needed round-the-clock care. My parents were working double shifts to cover the medical bills, and honestly, I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her to struggle. She was my sister, my best friend. So, I made a choice. A big one. I turned down the Novatech offer. "Are you sure, Jess?" Sarah had asked, her voice weak. She was lying in bed, her face pale. "This is your dream." "You're my dream now, Sarah," I'd said, forcing a smile. It was true. What good was a fancy job if I couldn't be there for her? I became her nurse, her cook, her confidant. I put my career on hold, telling myself it was temporary, that once Sarah was better, I could pick up where I left off. Meanwhile, Sarah seemed to be getting better, slowly but surely. The treatments were working, and she was starting to regain her strength. We'd spend hours talking, laughing, and even arguing about silly things like which influencer had the best makeup tutorials. "You should start looking for jobs again, Jess," she told me one afternoon, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. "I'm getting better, and I don't want you to waste your talent." I knew she was right. My savings were dwindling, and I was starting to feel restless. I started sending out applications, but nothing seemed to click. The market had shifted, new technologies had emerged, and I felt like I was already falling behind. One day, I was scrolling through LinkedIn, feeling particularly dejected, when I saw a familiar name, Sarah Lane. She had a new job at Novatech. My heart skipped a beat. I clicked on her profile, my hands trembling. There it was in black and white. Software engineer at Novatech. The same company, the same position I had turned down. Confusion turned into a dull ache in my stomach. How? When? Sarah didn't even have a computer science degree. She studied English literature. I called her immediately. "Sarah, what's this I see on LinkedIn?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, hey, Jess," she said, a little too brightly. "Yeah, I got a job." "At Novatech? Doing what?" There was a pause. "Software engineering. It's a long story." "Tell me," I demanded. She mumbled something about a lucky break and an opportunity she couldn't pass up. The more she talked, the more suspicious I became. Something wasn't adding up. That night, after Sarah had gone to sleep, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through her phone. I know, it was wrong, but I had to know the truth. I scrolled through her messages, her emails, her social media accounts. Nothing. It was like she had scrubbed her entire digital life clean. Then I found it, buried deep in her deleted messages, a conversation with an unknown number. "Did you get everything?" The message read. Sarah's reply. "Yes. Resume, portfolio, everything. Thanks again for your help." My blood ran cold. Resume? Portfolio? Whose? Then it hit me. I rushed to my computer and pulled up my own resume, the one I had sent to Novatech months ago. I compared it to Sarah's LinkedIn profile. It was identical. The skills, the projects, the experience. It was all me. She had stolen my resume. She had stolen my identity. She had stolen my dream. But how had she gotten the job? She couldn't fake a technical interview. Could she? I dove deeper, searching for more clues. I found an email in her sent folder, a thank you note to someone named Mr. Harrison at Novatech. I Googled him. He was the head of the hiring committee. Another deleted message popped up on Sarah's phone screen. He really thought you were Jessica Lane. Don't blow it. My heart pounded in my chest. She had not only stolen my resume, but she had also impersonated me in the interview. She had pretended to be me. But why? Why would she do this? Sarah, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I know what you did. She looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know what you're talking about. I showed her the messages, the emails, the LinkedIn profile. I laid out all the evidence in front of her. She broke down. I'm sorry, Jess, she sobbed. I didn't mean to hurt you. Then why did you do it? I demanded. She confessed everything. She had been feeling insecure, like she was a failure compared to me. When she saw my resume, she saw a way to finally prove herself. She contacted Mr. Harrison, pretending to be me, and somehow she managed to convince him to give her an interview. He thought I was you, she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. He said he was so impressed with my application. I was stunned. How could she do this to me, her own sister? How could she steal my dream and then lie to my face? You took everything from me, Sarah, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Everything! She begged for forgiveness, but I couldn't bring myself to give it to her. Not yet. I left the house feeling lost and betrayed. I wandered the streets for hours trying to make sense of what had happened. What would you do if you were me? Would you forgive your sister? Would you expose her and risk ruining her life? Or would you try to find a way to reclaim what was rightfully yours? I considered going to Novatech and telling them the truth, but I was afraid of the consequences. What if they didn't believe me? What if they sued me for defamation? Then I had an idea. A risky one, but one that might just work. I decided to play Sarah's game. I knew I couldn't just walk into Novatech and demand my job back. I needed a plan. I needed leverage. I remembered Sarah mentioning that she was working on a new AI project, something top secret that the company was betting big on. If I could get my hands on that project, I could prove that I was the real Jessica Lane, the one who was capable of doing the job. But how? I started by researching Novatech's security protocols. They were pretty tight, but I knew I could find a way in. After all, I was the one who taught Sarah everything she knew about computers. I spent days poring over code, looking for vulnerabilities. I found a few potential weaknesses, but they were all heavily guarded. Then, I remembered something Sarah had told me about her password. She had used our childhood dog's name. Pathetic. I decided to give it a try. I fired up my laptop and connected to Novatech's network. I entered Sarah's email address and the password. It worked. I was in. I had access to Sarah's entire computer, including all her files and emails. I started searching for the AI project. It was hidden deep within a secure folder, but I eventually found it. I downloaded the entire project onto a flash drive. Now I had the leverage I needed. The Harrison at Novatech. I told him I had some information about a potential security breach. He agreed to meet me. I walked into his office, my heart pounding in my chest. I showed him the flash drive and explained everything. He was shocked. He couldn't believe that Sarah had lied to him. He asked me to demonstrate my knowledge of the AI project. I did. I explained the code, the algorithms, the architecture. He was impressed. He realized that I was the real Jessica Lane, the one he had originally hired. He fired Sarah on the spot. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted more than just my job back. I wanted to expose Sarah for what she had done. I decided to go public with my story. I contacted a local news station and told them everything. They were interested. They interviewed me, Sarah, and Mr. Harrison. The story went viral. Sarah was humiliated. She lost her job, her friends, and her reputation. She became a pariah. I felt a sense of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. Seeing Sarah suffer didn't make me happy. It made me sad. She was still my sister, after all. I started to question my actions. Had I gone too far? Was revenge worth it? One night, I received a text message from Sarah. "Can we talk?" it read. I hesitated, but I agreed to meet her. We met at a coffee shop, the same one we used to go to when we were kids. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her face was pale. I'm sorry, Jess, she said, her voice barely audible. I know I messed up. I just wanted to be like you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the pain and regret in her eyes. I realized that she wasn't a monster. She was just a flawed human being who had made a terrible mistake. I decided to forgive her. I forgive you, Sarah, I said, but you need to make things right. She agreed. She publicly apologized for her actions and vowed to make amends. It took time, but Sarah eventually rebuilt her life. She went back to school and got a degree in creative writing. She found a job she loved, and she started to heal. As for me, I went back to Novatech and took my rightful place as a software engineer. I excelled at my job, and I finally felt like I was living my dream. But the experience changed me. I learned that revenge is never the answer. Forgiveness is the only way to truly heal. I also learned that family is the most important thing in the world. Even when they hurt you, you have to find a way to forgive them. What would you have done? Would you have sought revenge, or would you have chosen forgiveness? That experience taught me a lot about trust, betrayal, and the complicated bonds of family. It wasn't just about a job, it was about my identity, my dreams, and the person I thought my sister was. Getting back my job, exposing Sarah, those were battles won, but the war was about something much bigger, forgiving her and finding my own path forward. Now, I'm working on a new project, something completely different from AI. I'm developing an app that helps people reconnect with their families, build stronger relationships, and find forgiveness. Irony, right? But hey, life throws curveballs. It's how you swing that matters. I'm not going to lie, the scars are still there. There are days when I still feel a pang of resentment, a flicker of anger. But then I remember Sarah's face, her genuine remorse, and I know that I made the right choice. Forgiveness isn't easy, but it's worth it. I hope my story has resonated with you. We all face challenges, betrayals, and difficult decisions. It's how we choose to respond that defines us. So, choose love. Choose hope. I truly hope this helped you in any way. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Leave a comment telling us what would you have done. The thing is, even after all that, even after the forgiveness, the scars still ran deep. Novatech wasn't the same. The air felt tainted. Everyone looked at me sideways like I was a walking, talking scandal. The whispers followed me down the hallways. It wasn't just about the job. It was about my reputation. It was about the feeling of being constantly judged. I felt like I was living in a fishbowl, every move scrutinized, every success questioned. So, I quit. Yeah, I walked away from the dream job, the one I had fought so hard to reclaim. It sounds crazy, right? Giving up again. But I needed a fresh start, a place where I wasn't defined by my sister's betrayal. I started freelancing, taking on small projects, building my portfolio from scratch. It was hard, a real grind. But I was free. I was in control. Then, one rainy Tuesday, my mom called. Her voice was shaky, almost a whisper. "Jessica, something's happened to Sarah." My blood ran cold. "What? What is it?" "She's gone. She's disappeared." Disappeared? Just like that? It didn't make sense. I knew Sarah was still fragile, still struggling to find her footing, but she wouldn't just vanish. Would she? I rushed to my parents' house, my mind racing. My mom was a wreck. Dad was trying to stay strong, but I could see the fear in his eyes. They hadn't heard from Sarah in 3 days. Her phone was off, her apartment was empty. It was like she had been erased. "The police are looking into it," Dad said, his voice strained. "But they don't think it's a priority. They think she just ran away." I knew better. Sarah wouldn't run. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. I started my own investigation, retracing Sarah's steps, talking to her friends, her co-workers, anyone who might have seen her in the days before she disappeared. I started with her apartment. It was small, cluttered, but otherwise normal. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry. Just a few dirty dishes in the sink and a half-finished book on her nightstand. But something felt off. Like a scene staged for a play. Everything neatly arranged, too perfect. Then I noticed it. A small, almost invisible scratch on the window pane. I looked closer. It was fresh, recent. Someone had tried to break in. Or break out. I called the police, pointed out the scratch, but they dismissed it as nothing. Probably just a tree branch, the officer said, shrugging. I didn't believe him. I knew Sarah was in danger. I just had to figure out why. I hacked into Sarah's email account. Again, I know, not proud of it, but desperate times, right? I sifted through her inbox, her sent messages, her drafts. Nothing. Everything seemed normal, mundane. Bills, newsletters, cat videos. Typical Sarah stuff. But then, I found it. Hidden in her spam folder, a single email from an unknown sender. The subject line was blank. The body contained only a single line of text. They know. They know? Know what? Who are they? I clicked on the sender's address. It was a burner email, untraceable. But the message itself was chilling. It confirmed my worst fears. Sarah wasn't missing. She was in hiding from someone who knew something that could get her killed. I tried calling her phone again. Still off. I checked her social media. No new posts, no recent activity. It was like she had vanished from the face of the earth. Then I remembered something. Sarah had mentioned a new friend she had made at her writing group, a guy named Mark. I looked him up online. He had a small, unassuming profile, a few pictures, a few posts. Nothing that stood out, but something about his eyes made me uneasy. They were cold, calculating. I decided to pay him a visit. I found his address online and drove to his apartment. It was in a rundown part of town, a far cry from Sarah's cozy little place. I knocked on the door. No answer. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open and stepped inside. The apartment was dark, cluttered, and smelled of stale cigarettes. Empty beer bottles littered the floor, and the air was thick with a sense of neglect. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. I started to search the apartment. I found nothing of interest in the living room or the kitchen. But then I opened the door to the bedroom, and that's when my blood froze. On the bed lay a photo of Sarah. But it wasn't just any photo. It was a surveillance photo, taken recently, of Sarah being followed. My heart hammered against my ribs. This guy wasn't just a friend. He was stalking her. I turned to leave, to call the police, but as I turned, I saw something glinting in the shadows, a knife, lying on the bedside table. I reached for it, my fingers trembling, but as I did, I heard a noise behind me, the sound of someone clearing their throat. I spun around. Mark stood in the doorway, his eyes dark and menacing. He didn't say a word. He just smiled. "Looking for something?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. I swallowed hard. I was trapped, alone, with a stalker and a knife. How was I going to get out of this? I held up the knife. "Stay back!" I yelled, trying to sound braver than I felt. He chuckled. "You think that will stop me?" He took a step closer. I took a step back. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I just want to talk," he said, his eyes fixed on me. "About Sarah." "What about her?" "She knows something she shouldn't," he said, "and I need to find out what it is." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, lying through my teeth. He raised an eyebrow. "Don't play dumb with me," he said. "She told you, didn't she? She always confided in you." My mind raced. What did Sarah tell me? What could she have possibly known that would put her life in danger? I thought back to our conversations, our late-night talks, our silly arguments. I couldn't remember anything that seemed significant. But then, I remembered something. A few weeks ago, Sarah had been researching a story for her writing group, something about a local politician, a shady deal, a hidden conspiracy. Could that be it? "I don't know anything about any politician," I said, trying to sound convincing. He smirked. "Liar," he said. He lunged at me. I screamed and dropped the knife. He grabbed me by the arm and dragged me into the bedroom. He threw me onto the bed and pinned me down. Tell me what she told you, he screamed. I struggled against him, but he was too strong. I don't know anything, I cried. He raised his hand to strike me. I closed my eyes, bracing for the impact, but it never came. Instead, I heard a loud crash. The door flew open, and my dad burst into the room. He tackled Mark to the ground. I scrambled off the bed and ran out of the apartment. The police arrived minutes later and arrested Mark. My dad had saved my life. But the danger wasn't over, not yet. The police questioned Mark, but he refused to talk. He wouldn't reveal what Sarah knew or who he was working for. All he said was that Sarah was in danger and that I needed to find her before it was too late. The police searched for Sarah, but they couldn't find her. They were running out of leads, and they were starting to lose hope. I refused to give up. I knew Sarah was out there, somewhere, and I was going to find her, no matter what. I went back to Sarah's apartment. I needed to find something, anything, that would lead me to her. I searched every corner, every drawer, every box. I found nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed something strange about the bookshelf. One of the books was slightly out of place. I pulled it out. It was a first edition of The Hound of the Baskervilles. I opened it up. Inside, I found a small folded piece of paper. I unfolded it. On it was a single word: Blackwood. Blackwood. What did it mean? Was it a place? A person? A code word? I Googled Blackwood. Nothing came up. I tried searching for local businesses with that name. Still nothing. Sarah had mentioned a historic building downtown called Blackwood Manor. It was abandoned, dilapidated, and rumored to be haunted. Could that be it? Was Sarah hiding out at Blackwood Manor? I had to find out. I drove to Blackwood Manor. It was even more ominous than I had imagined. The building was crumbling, the windows were boarded up, and the grounds were overgrown with weeds. The air was thick with a sense of decay. I parked my car and walked towards the manor. As I approached the entrance, I noticed something glinting in the moonlight. A security camera, hidden in the bushes. Someone was watching the manor. Someone didn't want anyone going inside. That meant Sarah had to be there. I cautiously made my way around the back of the manor, searching for another way in. I found a broken window and climbed inside. The manor was dark, cold, and damp. The air was heavy with the smell of mold and dust. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam illuminated a grand foyer with a sweeping staircase leading to the upper floors. I started to climb the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached the top, I heard a noise, a faint whisper, coming from one of the rooms. I cautiously approached the room and peeked inside. And that's when I saw her. Sarah. She was lying on the floor, unconscious, tied up, and standing over her was my mother. What would you have done if you were me? My mother? Standing over Sarah? It didn't make any sense. Mom, what are you doing? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She turned around, her eyes wide with shock. Jessica, what are you doing here? I should be asking you that question, I said, my voice growing stronger. Why is Sarah tied up? What's going on? She didn't answer. She just stared at me, her face pale and drawn. Mom, please, I begged. Tell me what's happening. She sighed and ran a hand through her hair. It's complicated, Jessica, she said. You wouldn't understand. Try me, I said. She hesitated for a moment, then started to talk. She told me that Sarah had stumbled upon some information about a corrupt politician, a local councilman named Alderman Thorne. Thorne was involved in a shady land deal, a deal that would displace hundreds of families and destroy a protected wetland. Sarah had been digging into the story, trying to expose Thorne's corruption, but Thorne found out about her investigation and threatened her. He told her to back off or else. Sarah refused to be intimidated. She kept digging, gathering more evidence. Thorne got desperate. He hired Mark to silence her. Mark was supposed to scare Sarah, to convince her to drop the story, but Sarah was too stubborn. She wouldn't budge. So, Thorne ordered Mark to kill her. My mom found out about Thorne's plan. She couldn't let Sarah die. So she hatched a plan of her own. She contacted Thorne and offered to help him. She told him she could convince Sarah to back down. Thorne agreed. He told her to bring Sarah to Blackwood Manor. My mom lured Sarah to the manor under the guise of a family emergency. When Sarah arrived, my mom tied her up. She planned to talk to Sarah, to reason with her, to convince her to drop the story. But Sarah wouldn't listen. She was determined to expose Thorn, no matter the cost. My mom didn't know what to do. She couldn't let Sarah die, but she couldn't let her expose Thorn either. Thorn was a powerful man. He had connections, resources. He could destroy our family. "I just wanted to protect you girls," my mom said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know what else to do." I stared at her in disbelief. My own mother had kidnapped my sister to protect a corrupt politician? It was insane. "How could you do this, Mom?" I asked, my voice filled with anger. "How could you betray us like this?" She started to cry. "I'm sorry, Jessica," she sobbed. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to keep you safe." "Safe?" I screamed. "You tied up my sister and left her in a haunted manor. That's not safe." I rushed to Sarah and started to untie her. "Sarah, wake up," I said, shaking her gently. She groaned and opened her eyes. "Jessica?" she said, her voice weak. "What's going on?" "It's okay, Sarah," I said. "You're safe now." I helped her sit up. She looked around the room, her eyes filled with confusion. "Mom," she said, "what are you doing here?" My mom hung her head in shame. "I'm sorry, Sarah," she said. "I messed up." Sarah stared at her, her face a mask of disbelief. You did this?" she asked. My mom nodded. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I can't believe you," she said. "I trusted you." She stood up and turned away from my mom. "I don't want to see you again," she said. She walked towards the door. "Sarah, wait!" my mom called out. But Sarah didn't stop. She walked out of the room and disappeared down the stairs. I turned to my mom. "What have you done?" I asked, my voice filled with rage. She didn't answer. She just stood there, crying. I knew I had to get Sarah out of there. Thorn couldn't be trusted. He could send someone else to silence her. I grabbed my mom by the arm and dragged her out of the room. "We have to go," I said. "Thorn knows we're here." She nodded, her face pale with fear. We ran down the stairs and out of the manor. As we reached the car, we heard a noise, the sound of tires screeching on the gravel driveway. Headlights flashed in our eyes. A car pulled up in front of us. Alderman Thorn stepped out. He was holding a gun. "Well, well, well," he said, his voice dripping with menace. "What do we have here? A family reunion?" My blood ran cold. We were trapped with a corrupt politician and a gun. How was I going to get us out of this? "Thorn, put the gun down," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. He laughed. "You think I'm going to let you expose me?" he said. "Think again." He raised the gun and pointed it at Sarah. "No!" I screamed. I lunged at Thorn, trying to knock the gun out of his hand. He pushed me away, sending me sprawling to the ground. He raised the gun again, this time pointing it at my mom. "Thorn, please don't," she begged. "I'll do anything, just don't hurt my daughters." He smirked. "Anything?" he said. "Then tell Sarah to drop the story." My mom hesitated for a moment. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "I'll tell her. Just please don't hurt her." Thorn lowered the gun slightly. "Good," he said. "Now, tell her." My mom turned to Sarah. "Sarah, please," she said. "Drop the story. It's not worth your life." Sarah looked at her, her eyes filled with pain. "I can't, Mom," she said. "I can't let him get away with this." Thorn raised the gun again. "I'm warning you," he said. "Drop the story or I'll kill you both." I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let Thorn kill my sister or my mom. I stood up and faced him. "Thorn, stop," I said. "This doesn't have to end like this." He glared at me. "Shut up, Jessica," he said. "This is none of your business." "It is my business," I said. "Sarah is my sister, and you're not going to hurt her." I took a step towards him. He raised the gun and pointed it at my head. "I said shut up," he screamed. I didn't flinch. I just kept walking towards him. He pulled the trigger. I closed my eyes, bracing for the impact, but it never came. Instead, I heard a loud bang, a scream, and then silence. I opened my eyes. Thorn was lying on the ground, bleeding, and standing over him was Sarah. She was holding a rock, a big, jagged rock. She had thrown it at Thorn, hitting him in the head. He was unconscious, maybe dead. I stared at her in shock. She had saved our lives, but she had also committed a crime. What would you have done if you were me? I looked at my mom. She was staring at Sarah, her face a mixture of shock and pride. Now! We grabbed Thorn's gun and ran back to the car. We piled in and sped away from Blackwood Manor. We didn't stop until we reached the state line. We were fugitives, on the run, and Sarah was a potential murderer. How was I going to get us out of this mess? As we drove, I thought about what had just happened. Sarah had saved our lives, but she had also changed everything. We were no longer just victims. We were criminals, and we were in this together. I looked at Sarah. She was staring out the window, her face pale and drawn. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I think so," she said. I can't believe I did that." "You did what you had to do," I said. "You saved our lives." "But I killed him," she said. "I'm a murderer." "We don't know if he's dead," I said. "But even if he is, it was self-defense. You were protecting us." "I don't know what to do," she said. "We'll figure it out," I said. "We always do." I looked at my mom. She was still in shock. She hadn't said a word since we left Blackwood Manor. "Mom?" I said. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly. "I don't know what to think," she said. "Everything has changed." "I know," I said, "but we're still a family, and we'll get through this together." We drove for hours, not knowing where we were going or what we were going to do. We just knew we had to get away. Away from Thorn, away from the police, away from everything. Finally, we reached a small town. We checked into a motel and tried to get some sleep, but it was impossible. We were all too shaken up, too scared, too uncertain about the future. The headlines screamed, "Alderman Thorn found dead at Blackwood Manor." Sarah's face flashed across the screen. She was wanted for murder. We were officially fugitives. The police were searching for us. The FBI was involved. Our faces were plastered all over the news. With no money, no resources, and nowhere to go. And the entire country was looking for us. How were we ever going to clear Sarah's name? How were we ever going to prove that she acted in self-defense? And how were we ever going to escape this nightmare? I knew one thing. I had to protect my family, no matter what. Even if it meant going to prison, even if it meant sacrificing everything. We were in this together, and we would face whatever came our way. Together. The phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice whispered, "They're watching you." Click. The line went dead. Who was watching us? And what did they want? I had a feeling this was just the beginning of a whole new level of trouble. "They're watching you." The words echoed in my head, chilling me to the bone. Who was they? Thorn's associates? The police? Someone else entirely? I felt a surge of paranoia. Every shadow seemed to lengthen. Every car that passed felt like it was tailing us. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being hunted. I told Mom and Sarah about the call. Mom's eyes widened with fear. "We have to get out of here," she whispered. "They know where we are." Sarah, on the other hand, seemed almost resigned. "What does it matter?" she said. "We're screwed anyway. I'm a murderer, and we're all fugitives." "Don't talk like that," I snapped. "We're not giving up. We're going to find a way out of this." I knew I had to take charge. I had to be strong for my family. I pulled out my laptop and started searching for information about Alderman Thorn. I needed to understand who he was, who he worked with, and who might want him dead. I found a few articles about his political career, his business dealings, and his philanthropic activities, but nothing that suggested he was corrupt or involved in criminal activity. Then I stumbled upon a blog post written by a local journalist. The journalist claimed that Thorn was connected to a powerful crime syndicate. The syndicate was involved in drug trafficking, money laundering, and political corruption. The journalist had been investigating Thorne's ties to the syndicate when he suddenly disappeared. His body was never found. I felt a chill run down my spine. Thorne wasn't just a corrupt politician. He was a dangerous criminal, and we had just crossed him. Or, well, Sarah had. Now his associates were coming after us. I needed to find a way to protect my family. I decided to contact the journalist's family. Maybe they knew something that could help us. I found their address online and drove to their house. It was a small, modest home in a working-class neighborhood. A woman answered the door. She was the journalist's widow. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice weary. I introduced myself and told her I was investigating Thorne's death. She hesitated for a moment, then invited me inside. We sat down at the kitchen table. I told her about Sarah, about Blackwood Manor, about the anonymous phone call. She listened intently, her eyes fixed on me. When I finished, she sighed. "I knew it," she said. "I knew Thorne was responsible for my husband's death." She told me that her husband had been working on a story that would expose Thorne's ties to the crime syndicate. He had gathered a lot of evidence, but he had hidden it somewhere safe. He was afraid Thorne would find it. "He told me that if anything ever happened to him, I should give the evidence to someone I trusted," she said. "Someone who would finish what he started." She looked at me, her eyes filled with hope. "I think that person is you." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains all the evidence my husband gathered about Thorne," she said. "Use it wisely." I took the flash drive, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. This was our chance to clear Sarah's name and expose Thorne's corruption. But I knew that Thorne's associates wouldn't let us get away with it easily. They would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. I thanked the journalist's widow and left her house. I drove back to the motel, my mind racing. I needed to find a safe place to review the evidence on the flash drive, a place where we wouldn't be disturbed. I decided to check into a secluded cabin in the woods, a place where we could hide out until we figured out our... I told Mom and Sarah about the flash drive. They were both relieved. "This is it," Mom said. "This is our chance to get out of this mess." Sarah was still skeptical. "I don't know," she said. "Even if we expose Thorne, I'm still a murderer." "We'll worry about that later," I said. "Right now, we need to focus on clearing your name." We packed our bags and drove to the cabin. It was small, rustic, and isolated. Exactly what we needed. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and started reviewing the evidence. It was overwhelming. Documents, emails, financial records, surveillance photos. Thorne was involved in everything from drug trafficking to bribery to murder. The evidence was damning. I knew that if we could get this information to the right people, we could take down Thorne's entire organization. But who could we trust? The police were corrupt. The politicians were corrupt. Who could we turn to for help? I remembered a friend from college who worked for the FBI. Her name was Agent Miller. She was smart, honest, and dedicated. I decided to call her. I explained the situation to her and told her about the flash drive. She listened intently, her voice filled with concern. "This is big, Jessica," she said. "If what you're saying is true, this could take down a major crime syndicate." She told me to send her the evidence on the flash drive. She would review it and then decide what to do. I hesitated for a moment. Could I trust her? What if she was corrupt too? But I didn't have any other options.